A Course in Miracles. Lesson 169 isn't just a teaching, it's a threshold, a thin place. And the thumbnail? That's no accident. That altar of light, that beam from a distant star, that quiet ripple through cosmic stillness, that's the tone of grace. Not loud but unmistakable. Not forced but inevitable. Not deserved but freely given. A Course in Miracles tells us grace is not learned because it is not of this world, but it is remembered. Let's just pause and sit in that for a moment. Grace is acceptance of the love of God. Not earning, not achieving, not bargaining, just acceptance. And look at that altar again on the thumbnail. It's not doing anything but receiving. It's not striving, it's not negotiating, it's simply there, open, concave, humble. That's the posture of grace. The Course even says in this lesson that grace is not the goal this course aspires to. Why? Because grace is already the truth. It's what remains when all goals are gone. It's the light that pours in after every self-concept finally collapses. That stone altar, that's us. Still, waiting, held, and that liquid light. That's the awareness that we never left God, that nothing real has been lost, and that love has not changed its mind about us. Grace is elegant, yes, but it's also a clean break from the heavy machinery of ego striving. It's not mercy for the guilty. It's not relief from punishment. It's the quiet end of the lie that we ever separated at all. And the dictionary defines grace as simple elegance. Because the ego loves complexity. It makes grace seem unreachable, wrapped in stained glass and guilt. But grace is simple. Grace is the unearned sunrise, the quiet knowing, the hand you didn't ask for but was already holding yours. It is not justice as the world defines it, it is the end of the courtroom. So here's what I say before we begin, mighty companions. Let us not be afraid to drown in grace. Let us not flinch when illusions dissolve. Let the ripple of divine remembrance reach even the darkest corners of our minds. Because today, paragraph by paragraph, we don't just read lesson 169. We remember it. We're dropping the anchor, mighty companions. Let's go Titanic deep. Lesson 169. By grace I live, by grace I am released. Grace is an aspect of the love of God, which is most like the state prevailing in the unity of truth. It is the world's most lofty aspiration, for it leads beyond the world entirely. It is past learning, yet the goal of learning, for grace cannot come until the mind prepares itself for true acceptance. Grace becomes inevitable instantly in those who have prepared a table where it can be gently laid and willingly received, an altar clean and holy for the gift. Grace is not something we earn through discipline or reach through striving. It is the gentle presence of God's love remembered when all resistance has been laid aside. It does not descend because we are worthy, but because we have stopped pretending to be separate. It is the stillness beneath all movement, the quiet light beneath all form, the truth that waits behind every illusion. The Course says grace is an aspect of love that most closely resembles the unity of truth, because in grace there is nothing left to separate, judge, or defend. It is not kindness offered to the guilty. It is the absolute absence of guilt altogether. And so it is the world's most lofty aspiration, not because the world can achieve it, but because even the dreamer longs to awaken. The world knows ambition, but grace is not ambition. The world values goals, but grace ends all goals. And yet grace becomes the highest thing the world can imagine because it points toward a peace not born of circumstance. Grace cannot be learned, and yet it is the goal of all learning. Because true learning is unlearning, the gentle undoing of every block we've placed between ourselves and the gift already given. Grace becomes inevitable the moment we stop preparing ourselves for war and start preparing the table. A table set with nothing but willingness, a table clean of grievances, a table where no guest but God is invited. This is the altar, not one made of stone or sacrifice, but the inner space where no accusation lives. When the altar is clean, grace comes not with thunder but with softness, gently laid and willingly received. It cannot be forced because it does not push. It simply waits to be welcomed, and in that moment of invitation, it pours itself like liquid light into the heart that has finally made room. This is the holy beginning, and we have just stepped inside it. Grace is acceptance of the love of God within a world of seeming hate and fear. By grace alone, the hate and fear are gone. For grace presents a state so opposite to everything the world contains, that those whose minds are lighted by the gift of grace cannot believe the world of fear is real. Grace is not just comfort. Grace is not just ease. Grace is the recognition of love in a world that insists love abandoned us. It is the quiet acceptance of what was always true, even when everything around you seems to say the opposite. It is when you choose not to reply to that cruel comment, not because you're better than them, but because something in you knows their pain is not about you. It is when you walk into a room expecting to defend yourself, and instead you speak gently, as if someone else is guiding your words. And they are. It is when you're sitting in traffic and something shifts, not the cars, not the noise, but you, and suddenly there's no rush, no problem, no future, just presence. The Course says, grace is acceptance of the love of God within a world of seeming hate and fear. Seeming because the hate isn't truthful, the fear isn't stable. They only appear to be real when grace is forgotten. You think of that moment someone cut you off or insulted you, and your first instinct was to strike back. But you didn't, and not out of weakness, but because something in you saw past the mask. That was grace. By grace alone, the hate and fear are gone, not because the news changed, not because the world got kinder, but because you were seeing with different eyes. Grace doesn't rearrange the scenery, it changes the seer. Like when you walk into your childhood home after years of bitterness, and instead of defending yourself, you feel a softness rising in your chest. You're not pretending, you're just done fighting. That's grace. The Course says grace presents a state so opposite to everything the world contains that those whose minds are lighted by the gift of grace cannot believe the world of fear is real. It's like waking from a nightmare and realizing you're safe in your bed, sweating, breathing heavy, but safe. And the monsters? Gone. Because they were never really there. That's how grace works. You still pay the bill. You still show up to work. But the burden, the inner tightness, the story of guilt and punishment, that's gone. And you can't even remember why it felt so heavy before. Maybe grace is the moment you cry in the kitchen and nothing gets fixed, but for some reason you know you're going to be okay. No angelic choirs, no thunder, just a knowing. That's grace. Or maybe it's the friend you're about to cut off, but then they said, "I'm sorry," and your heart cracked just enough to let them back in. That crack, that's grace. It's the pause before judgment. It's the softening of eyes. It's the child who forgives you faster than you forgave yourself. It's the stranger who smiles at you when you forgot how to smile. It's the forgiveness you gave that shocked even you. And once grace touches you like that, even just once, the world of fear starts to lose credibility. You just don't buy it anymore. Not the voice that says you're not enough. Not the story that says you must suffer. Not the panic in the news or the shame in your chest. Grace is the inner click that tells you none of that is real, and for one breath you believe it, and that one breath is enough to begin. That's grace in action, mighty companion. Not abstract, not floating in the clouds, but woven into the cracks of the ordinary. Grace is not learned. The final step must go beyond all learning. Grace is not the goal this course aspires to attain. Yet we prepare for grace in that an open mind can hear the call to waken. It is not shut tight against God's voice. It has become aware that there are things it does not know, and thus is ready to accept a state completely different from experience with which it is familiarly at home. Grace is not something we earn by getting the answers right. It is not the final reward for mastering the workbook. Grace is not learned. And yet this course, which is all about learning, spends hundreds of pages preparing us to receive what cannot be taught. That's because the final step must go beyond all learning, beyond concepts, beyond theology, beyond study. Grace isn't a chapter in a book. It's the moment the book drops from your hands and you fall into stillness, and you realize you never needed to be taught that you are loved. You only needed to stop arguing with it. The course even says, grace is not the goal this course aspires to attain. That's not a contradiction. That's clarity. Because grace was never absent. It can't be attained. It can only be remembered. So what does the course do? It prepares the mind, it softens the defenses, it loosens the grip of control. The workbook clears the noise, the text dissolves the reasoning, the manual invites trust, and then grace enters, like breath into lungs that didn't know they were holding. The line says, we prepare for grace in that an open mind can hear the call to awaken. What's an open mind? It's not a mind full of beliefs, it's a mind empty enough to listen. It's the moment you say, maybe I don't know, not in defeat, but in receptivity. An open mind is not afraid of silence. It is not addicted to being right. It doesn't confuse answers with peace. It has surrendered the need to define everything in terms of the past. Think about a conversation where someone hurt you, and instead of reacting, you paused. Not because you knew what to say, but because you didn't. That pause, that's an open mind. That's grace knocking. The opposite is true too. A shut mind is a mind that defends before it hears, that answers before it asks, that fights before it forgives. To be shut tight against God's voice means there's no room for unfamiliar peace to land. The mind is full of its own conclusions, its judgments, its identities. It's busy trying to be God rather than hear God. But here's the miracle. Even the shut mind cracks eventually. Even the most rigid thought system begins to question itself when pain becomes unbearable. That moment of humility, that I don't know anymore moment, that's the beginning of opening. The paragraph ends with this gem. It has become aware that there are things it does not know, and thus is ready to accept a state completely different from experience with which it is familiarly at home. Let's slow that down. We're so used to being at home in fear, so familiar with the ache of unworthiness, the grind of performance, the loop of guilt. We've made a house out of heartbreak and called it truth. But now something in us is beginning to wonder. What if this whole house was built on a false foundation? What if peace isn't just a visitor but our inheritance? What if there is a state completely different from all of this, and we're finally willing to receive it? That's what an open mind says. I don't know what grace is, but I'm ready. I don't know how to return home, but I'm done pretending this place of pain is where I belong. And that's where the final step happens, not from knowledge, but from surrender. And grace, always waiting, enters quietly and stays. We have perhaps appeared to contradict our statement that the revelation of the Father and the Son as one has been already set. But we have also said the mind determines when that time will be and has determined it. And yet we urge you to bear witness to the Word of God to hasten the experience of truth, and speed its advent into every mind that recognizes truth's effects on you. We have perhaps appeared to contradict our statement that the revelation of the Father and the Son as one has been already set. See, that's the course holding both sides of the paradox. It already happened. It hasn't happened yet. Both are true. Because time is not linear in God's mind. Revelation is outside time, already whole, but we experience it within time, one surrender at a time. So it says, we have also said the mind determines when that time will be and has determined it. Now pause. That's the doozy, mighty companion. That's the thunder in the hush. The mind determines when. Not God, not fate, not karma, not punishment. The mind. That means you're not waiting on grace. Grace is waiting on you. You're not on divine delay. You're on mental resistance. And the Course isn't scolding you. It's inviting you. It's saying, the moment you want the truth more than the lie ends. Not because God finally gave you something, but because you stopped blocking what was always yours. It's like the light has been pouring through the window all day, but the curtains were drawn. And now, you pull them back, and it's blinding, and beautiful, and immediate. Then the line says, and yet we urge you to bear witness to the word of God to hasten the experience of truth. Now, why would we want to hasten the experience of truth? Why speed it up? Because we are tired of the slow drip of suffering. Because pain is boring. Because fear is exhausting. Because we've seen enough of what isn't real to finally long for what is. It's not about rushing. It's about readiness. It's about telling your soul, I'm done defending illusions. I'm done pretending I don't want peace. I'm ready to be still long enough for the truth to come to me. And when the truth comes, it doesn't just bless you, it starts spilling. The next line says, and speed its advent into every mind that recognizes its effects on you. So let's break this down. When you walk in grace, even your silence speaks. When you no longer take offense, the room changes temperature. When you're kind without strategy, people feel it. And when you forgive someone who thought they were unworthy, they start to question their unworthiness too. Grace is contagious, and your life becomes the evidence, not the proof that you were right, but the living witness that love is real, and peace is possible, and nothing stands in the way but fear, and fear has no substance. You don't need a pulpit. You don't need a microphone. You need a light in your eyes that didn't come from achievement. You need a peace that makes people ask, how did you get that? And you say, I stopped earning, I started opening. That's why we hasten truth, not to escape the world, but to stop pretending the world is what we want. We let grace flow through us so others can recognize the echo in themselves. Because it's already in them too. Just sleeping, just waiting, just listening for a voice that sounds like home. And that's you. You become the tuning fork, the altar in motion, the walking invitation. Not to be admired, but to be remembered, because grace doesn't exalt the receiver. It reminds the world what's always been true for everyone. Oneness is simply the idea God is, and in his being, he encompasses all things. No mind holds anything but him. We say God is, and then we cease to speak, for in that knowledge words are meaningless. There are no lips to speak them, and no part of mind sufficiently distinct to feel that it is now aware of something not itself. It has united with its source. And like its source itself, it merely is. Oneness is not a concept. It is not something to be grasped or diagrammed. Oneness is simply the ideal God is. Not a being, not a person, not a force with preferences, just is. Like silence that has no opposite, like being that has no beginning. And in his being, he encompasses all things. That means nothing is outside him. Not the bird, not the murderer, not the pain, not the sunrise, not even your doubt, all of it, enfolded in the isness of God. No mind holds anything but Him. You think you're thinking about lunch, you think you're worried about money, you think you've got opinions. But beneath every thought, there's only God. Just like beneath every wave, there's only ocean. The form flickers, but the substance never changes. The Course says, we say God is, and then we cease to speak. Because what comes after is, you can't add to that. There's no comma, there's no punchline, there's no doctrine, there's just stillness. And the stillness is whole. And then the line hits. There are no lips to speak them, and no part of the mind sufficiently distinct to feel that it is now aware of something not itself. This is what happens when identity collapses. When the part of the mind that thought it was separate melts back into the whole. There's nothing left to observe. There's no me looking at God. There is just is. When the ball is the ball, how can it know it's the ball? There's no distance, no reflection, no that to look at from over here. Awareness has no object anymore. It becomes itself. It is itself. It disappears into completion. Just like a candle no longer casts light when it's placed inside the sun, not because it's gone, but because it's been absorbed into what it always was. It is unified with its source, the Course says, and like its source itself, it merely is. No striving, no achievement, no awakening as a thing, just being. Not being something, just being. The kind of being that makes all questions dissolve like mist under moonlight. This isn't about annihilation, it's about full remembrance. The return of the wave into the sea, the echo into the voice, the thought back into mind. The child waking up and realizing they never left the arms of their parent. They were dreaming of separation in a bed made of peace. And so we stop speaking. Not because we've run out of thoughts, but because what is doesn't require them. God doesn't need our commentary. He only asks for our acceptance. Now, why would we want to hasten the experience of truth? Why speed it up? Because we are tired of the slow drip of suffering. Because pain is boring. Because fear is exhausting. Because we've seen enough of what isn't real to finally long for what is. It's not about rushing. It's about readiness. It's about telling your soul, I'm done defending illusions. I'm done pretending I don't want peace. I'm ready to be still long enough for the truth to come to me. And when the truth comes, it doesn't just bless you, it starts spilling. The next line says, and speed its advent into every mind that recognizes its effects on you. So let's break this down. When you walk in grace, even your silence speaks. When you no longer take offense, the room changes temperature. When you're kind without strategy, people feel it. And when you forgive someone who thought they were unworthy, they start to question their unworthiness too. Grace is contagious, and your life becomes the evidence, not the proof that you were right, but the living witness that love is real, and peace is possible, and nothing stands in the way but fear, and fear has no substance. You don't need a pulpit. You don't need a microphone. You need a light in your eyes that didn't come from achievement. You need a peace that makes people ask, how did you get that? And you say, I stopped earning. I started opening. That's why we hasten truth. Not to escape the world, but to stop pretending the world is what we want. We let grace flow through us so others can recognize the echo in themselves. Because it's already in them too, just sleeping, just waiting, just listening for a voice that sounds like home. And that's you. You become the tuning fork, the altar in motion, the walking invitation. Not to be admired, but to be remembered. Because grace doesn't exalt the receiver. It reminds the world what's always been true for everyone. Oneness is simply the idea God is. And in His being, He encompasses all things. No mind holds anything but Him. We say God is, and then we cease to speak, for in that knowledge words are meaningless. There are no lips to speak them, and no part of mind sufficiently distinct to feel that it is now aware of something not itself. It has united with its source. And like its source itself, it merely is. Oneness is not a concept. It is not something to be grasped or diagrammed. Oneness is simply the ideal God is. Not a being, not a person, not a force with preferences, just is. Like silence that has no opposite, like being that has no beginning. And in his being he encompasses all things. That means nothing is outside him. Not the bird, not the murderer, not the pain, not the sunrise, not even your doubt, all of it, enfolded in the isness of God. No mind holds anything but him. You think you're thinking about lunch, you think you're worried about money, you think you've got opinions. But beneath every thought, there's only God. Just like beneath every wave, there's only ocean. The form flickers, but the substance never changes. The Course says, we say God is, and then we cease to speak. Because what comes after is, you can't add to that. There's no comma, there's no punchline, there's no doctrine, there's just stillness. And the stillness is whole. And then the line hits. There are no lips to speak them, and no part of the mind sufficiently distinct to feel that it is now aware of something not itself. This is what happens when identity collapses. When the part of the mind that thought it was separate melts back into the whole. There's nothing left to observe. There's no me looking at God. There is just is. When the ball is the ball, how can it know it's the ball? There's no distance, no reflection, no that to look at from over here. Awareness has no object anymore. It becomes itself. It is itself. It disappears into completion. Just like a candle no longer casts light when it's placed inside the sun, not because it's gone, but because it's been absorbed into what it always was. It is unified with its source, the Course says, and like its source itself, it merely is. No striving, no achievement, no awakening as a thing, just being, not being something, just being. The kind of being that makes all questions dissolve like mist under moonlight. This isn't about annihilation, it's about full remembrance, the return of the wave into the sea, the echo into the voice, the thought back into mind. The child waking up and realizing they never left the arms of their parent. They were dreaming of separation in a bed made of peace. And so we stop speaking. Not because we've run out of thoughts, but because what is doesn't require them. God doesn't need our commentary. He only asks for our acceptance. Now that sounds like a contradiction. How can we try to hasten something that is beyond experience? But here's the meaning. We cannot directly speed up what lies beyond time. But we can clear the path. We can let go of what blocks it. We can cultivate readiness, not by force, but by forgiveness. That's what we're hastening, not the arrival, but the readiness to receive. The paragraph continues, yet forgiveness taught and learned brings with it the experiences which bear witness that the time the mind itself determined to abandon, all but this is now at hand. Now let's slow that down. Forgiveness, even though it operates within the dream, carries with it experiences, moments of light, clarity and stillness, that signal to the mind that it's almost ready to let go of everything but God. These experiences are like echoes of truth, like ripples from the other side of the veil. They don't give you the full reality beyond time, but they prepare you. They whisper, you are close now. The altar is almost clear. The table is nearly set. So what is the mind abandoning? Not the world in form, but the investment in it. The belief that it has meaning apart from God. The judgment, the roles, the identities, the guilt, the blame, the hope for salvation in the world. All of that abandoned. And what remains? Stillness, grace, oneness. The paragraph says, "We do not hasten it in that what you will offer was conceived from him who teaches what forgiveness means." This is important. We're not trying to manufacture the experience of grace. We're not building a rocket ship to eternity. We are allowing what's already been planted in us by the teacher who knows the way. Who is that? The Holy Spirit, the voice for God, the quiet guide who takes everything the ego made and repurposes it for your awakening. What you will offer, your light, your healing, your peace, was conceived in him. Not by your personality, not by your trauma, not by your will, but by the part of your mind that never left God. So you don't need to perform awakening. You just need to remove the interference. And forgiveness does that. Forgiveness wipes the mirror clean. So when grace arrives, there's nothing left to obscure it. You might ask, but how do I know this is happening? You know it when the world starts to feel less personal, when you pause before reacting, when someone betrays you, and your first thought is, they forgot who they are, and you feel compassion instead of revenge. That's not your ego, that's the teacher's voice coming through. Those experiences bear witness. They're like lanterns appearing on the path. You didn't place them, but they confirm you're walking in the right direction. And when there are enough of them, when your heart begins to trust forgiveness more than judgment, the mind knows the time is now. It doesn't panic. It doesn't celebrate. It just surrenders. Not because it has to, but because it's tired of everything but this. And what is this? Grace, union, truth, the silence beyond concepts, the peace beyond thought, the joy that needs no reason. You didn't create it, you didn't invent it, but you were born to receive it, and it's at hand. All learning was already in his mind, accomplished and complete. He recognized all that time holds and gave it to all minds that each one might determine from a point where time was ended when it is released to revelation and eternity. We have repeated several times before that you but make a journey that is done. All learning was already in his mind, accomplished and complete. That means the Christ mind, the part of you that is still perfectly one with God, never had to learn anything. It never left. It never fell. It never doubted. It saw the whole of time before time began, and gave that vision to every mind so that awakening could happen from within, not from without. You think you're on a journey, but the destination was planted in you before the path even appeared. That's why all learning in this world is remedial. It's not to gain something new, but to remember what was already given, to remove the blocks, to unlearn the noise. He recognized all that time holds. That means the entirety of human experience: pain, joy, betrayal, birth, death, learning, healing, has already been seen, held, and offered back to God through the Christ mind. Nothing you're going through is unknown to that part of you. Nothing surprises the light. Every lesson has already been loved, every mistake already forgiven, and gave it to all minds. This is the key. You're not waking up alone. What was remembered in one mind is now accessible to all. Like a fire that once lit, spreads without diminishing, like music, heard once, and now echoing through every hallway of the mind. That each one might determine, from a point where time was ended, when it is released to revelation and eternity. That means, from the part of your mind that's outside of time, you will choose the moment of your release within time, and the moment is yours, always yours, because your will is still as God created it. So the clock isn't ticking on you, it's ticking in you, and whenever you say, "I'm done pretending I'm not whole," revelation enters. Grace floods in, and time dissolves like salt in warm water. Then the Course says, We have now repeated several times before that you but make a journey that is done. And here's where the paradox becomes a portal. You are not walking toward awakening. You are walking through the illusion that you ever left it. You are not being changed. You are being shown that you were never broken. You are not evolving. You are remembering. And what you're remembering was never lost. You think you're climbing a mountain, but you're actually sitting in your own living room, dreaming of the climb, sweating, struggling, crying, but always safe in the arms of God. That's why the Course calls it a journey without distance, because the only place you've ever needed to reach is the place you never left. And the guide, the teacher, the Christ, already walked the road, already mapped the way, and already placed the light in your hands. Not so you could achieve grace, but so you could remember it's been with you all along. Paragraph 8 is a holy contradiction wrapped in eternity, delivered in a single line. You but make a journey that is done. And we're walking it anyway, not to arrive, but to awaken to the fact we were already home, for oneness must be here. Whatever time the mind has set for revelation is entirely irrelevant to what must be a constant state, forever as it always was, forever to remain as it is now. We merely take the part assigned long since and fully recognized as perfectly fulfilled by Him who wrote salvation's script in His Creator's name and in the name of His Creator's Son. For oneness must be here, not later, not someday, not when you're finally spiritual enough. Now, because oneness is not the goal, it's the truth, it's the foundation, it's the fabric of what you are. The Course doesn't say will be here, it says must be here. Because how could something that is everything be absent? Whatever time the mind has set for revelation is entirely irrelevant. You may think awakening is 5 years away, or that you need 300 more lessons, or that you're not ready, but grace is not checking your spiritual resume. It's not grading you. It's offering itself every second because it's not coming to you. It's already in you. The time you set, that's fine, but it doesn't change what's always been true. Revelation will arrive at the moment of your willingness, not the moment of your worthiness. Because oneness is a constant state, forever as it always was, forever to remain as it is now. You can deny it, you can forget it, but you cannot undo it. You cannot unbe what God created. Then the Course says, we merely take the part assigned long since. You're not inventing your role in the healing of the mind, you're remembering it, like a line in a play written outside of time. And now the curtain rises, and it's your cue, not to perform, but to be still, to let forgiveness extend through you like a river remembering its course, to step into the part you already agreed to before time was dreamed, and fully recognized as perfectly fulfilled by Him. Wait, what? Already fulfilled? Yes, because the Christ in you has already walked the dream, has already reached the end, and now you're just watching the rerun, with the Holy Spirit holding the remote. By Him who wrote salvation's script in His Creator's name, and in the name of His Creator's Son. That's poetic language for a profound metaphysical truth. The script of awakening, of return, of healing, of redemption, was written not by the ego, but by the part of the mind that never forgot its source. And that part, the Holy Spirit, the voice for God, knows the exact moment when you will say, I'm ready. And even more miraculously, it knows you're not separate from the others playing their part. Every awakening is tied to all awakening, because there's only one Son. And then it says, there is no need to further clarify what no one in the world can understand.
This is not a cop-out, this is freedom. It's the Course saying you don't have to understand oneness with your brain, because oneness is not understood, it is known. Like the way a song touches you before you know the lyrics, like a light you feel even with your eyes closed. Understanding comes after. The experience comes first, and the experience is grace, right now, already given, already known, already you. There's no need to further clarify what no one in the world can understand. When revelation of your oneness comes, it will be known and fully understood. Now we have work to do, for those in time can speak of things beyond, and listen to words which explain what is to come is past already. Yet what meaning can the words convey to those who count the hours still, and rise and work and go to sleep by them? The Course says we don't need to explain this anymore, because no one in the world can really understand what oneness is with words. And that makes sense. Try explaining what love feels like to someone who's never felt safe. You can try, but it won't land until they feel it. That's the same with oneness. You don't learn it in your head. You recognize it when it shows up in your heart. And the Course says, when that experience comes, when you finally remember you're not separate from God, you'll understand it fully, without needing any words at all. Like someone waking up from a dream and suddenly knowing it was never real. No one needs to explain it. You just know. But until that day comes, we still have work to do. We're still living in time. We still set alarms. We still go to work. We still count the minutes until the weekend. So while we're here, we can still talk about things that come from beyond this world. Like when you tell someone, peace isn't something you find out there, it's something you uncover inside. That's a sentence from beyond time. That's the kind of thing we can still say while we're in this world. And we can still listen to messages like that too, like hearing someone say, "You're not broken, you're just tired of pretending you aren't whole." And something inside you just clicks. That's what it means to speak of what's already true, even if it hasn't happened yet in time. But the Course also asks a real question here. What do words like that even mean to someone who's still living by the clock? Waking up to get to work, watching the calendar, worrying about deadlines, trying to fix their life one day at a time. To someone like that, words like eternity, or revelation, or oneness don't always make sense. They sound like big spiritual ideas, but they don't feel real. So instead of preaching, we just live it. We become calm when things go wrong. We stop blaming other people. We forgive faster. We stop needing to be right all the time. And people will notice that, not because we're perfect, but because we're not scared anymore. Because we're starting to trust something deeper than time, deeper than pressure, deeper than the world. That's what this paragraph is saying. We may not fully understand oneness with our minds, but we can still be a living example of what it feels like, right here, right now. Suffice it then that you have work to do to play your part. The ending must remain obscure to you until your part is done. It does not matter, for your part is still what all the rest depends on. As you take the role assigned to you, salvation comes a little nearer each uncertain heart that does not beat as yet in tune with God. The Course says, suffice it then that you have work to do to play your part. That means, stop worrying about the big picture. Stop asking when the world will wake up. You've got something to do right now, and that's enough. You're not asked to fix everything. You're asked to forgive right here, love right here, trust right here. Then it says, the ending must remain obscure to you until your part is done. You don't get to see how it all plays out yet, and that's okay. That's not punishment, that's protection. Because if you knew the ending before you lived the lesson, you wouldn't learn to choose peace. You'd just be waiting for it to show up. Imagine you're working in a kitchen and you're only responsible for prepping the salad. You don't know what dessert's coming. But guess what? If you don't prep your part, the whole order falls apart. That's how your part fits into God's kitchen. You might not see the full meal, but your hands are holy just the same. Then the Course says something powerful. It does not matter, for your part is still what all the rest depends on. That's not ego, that's connection. That's God saying, I didn't forget you, you matter, you belong in the healing of the whole. As you take the role assigned to you, not someone else's role, not a role you wish you had, but the one you've been given, salvation comes a little bit nearer. Every time you forgive that person you swore you'd never forgive, salvation moves a step closer. Every time you choose not to snap back in anger, even when they deserve it, you bring light to the world. Every time you tell the truth gently, instead of hiding it behind a mask, you're helping the whole mind come back to God. The line says, to each uncertain heart that does not beat as yet in tune with God. That's every person you meet who's still scared, still angry, still bitter, still unsure if they're worth loving. Your peace helps their heart remember its rhythm. Your patience gives their panic space to breathe. Your light helps them see their own. Now let's talk about a plate that arrives from a kitchen. You see one speck on that plate, you send it back to the kitchen. Why? Because it's not clean, it's not whole, it's not ready to serve. And that's what this is saying about the sonship. There can't be one speck of unforgiveness left, not one heart left behind, not one grudge held secretly in the corner. Because the sonship is one, and if even one part thinks it's separate, then the whole doesn't reflect God's perfection. That's why your part matters. That's why no one is left out. That's why the clock's not running out. It's just waiting on the last little bit of willingness. And that might just come from you. Forgiveness is the central theme that runs throughout salvation, holding all its parts in meaningful relationships, the course it runs directed and its outcome sure. And now we ask for grace, the final gift salvation can bestow. Experience that grace provides will end in time, for grace foreshadows heaven, yet does not replace the thought of time but for a little while. Paragraph 12 is a linchpin. It pulls together all the threads we've been stitching: forgiveness, grace, salvation, time, and how they all dance together like gears in God's clock, ticking us gently toward awakening. And now the Course is saying, grace is the final gift. Salvation is the path. But grace is the resting place. Forgiveness is the central theme that runs through salvation. That means, if salvation is the path home, then forgiveness is the road we walk to get there. And it's not just one part of the path. It's the piece that connects all the other pieces. It's what ties everything together. Like the thread in a quilt, without it the whole thing falls apart. The Course says forgiveness holds all the parts in meaningful relationships, so you're not just forgiving people randomly. You're seeing the connections. You're recognizing that what you do in one place affects everything else. When you forgive your father, you start to feel lighter with your boss. When you let go of the past, your chest stops tightening around the future. It's all connected. And forgiveness shows you how. Then it says, forgiveness directs the course of salvation. It leads the way. It keeps you on track. It reminds you what matters when your ego starts chasing distractions. And its outcome? Sure, certain, guaranteed. You will make it home, no matter how many detours. Then the Course says something beautiful. And now we ask for grace, the final gift salvation can bestow on us. Let's pause. Let's remember what salvation is. It's the correction of the belief that we are separate from God. It's the process of remembering that we are innocent, that no one has truly harmed us, and that we were never truly lost. So salvation is like the washing process. And grace is the moment the towel gets set down and you realize you're already clean. Grace doesn't do anything, it just is. It's the final sigh, the deep breath, the stillness at the end of effort, It doesn't ask. It doesn't fix. It just settles over you, like warm light in a quiet room. Then it says, the experience that grace provides will end in time. Because grace is still part of the dream, it's the very last part, the exit door, but it's still inside time, just barely, just enough for us to touch it. Grace foreshadows heaven. It points toward it. It gives us a taste of what's coming. Like smelling bread baking before it comes out of the oven. Like hearing music in the distance before the band turns the corner. But it doesn't fully replace time, not yet. It just steps in for a little while, long enough to show us that time isn't real, that peace is coming, and it's already here. So we're not rushing, we're not forcing, we're just asking for grace and letting it settle in like quiet rain. The interval suffices. It is here that miracles are laid, to be returned by you from holy instants you receive, through grace in your experience, to all who see the light that lingers in your face. What is the face of Christ but his who went a moment into timelessness and brought a clear reflection of the unity he felt an instant back to bless the world? How could you finally attain to it forever, while a part of you remains outside, unknowing, unawakened, and in need of you as witness to the truth? Paragraph 13 is the handoff. Grace gives you something, and you bring it back. You don't keep it. You share it just by being real in it. This is the part where the Course says, you don't have to teach with your words. You teach with your face, with your presence, with the look in your eye that says, I stepped outside of time for a moment, and I came back to tell you it's going to be okay. The interval suffices. That means even just a moment of grace is enough. You don't need to live in heaven forever. You just need to touch it, even for a breath, even for an instant. That single moment is enough to light you up. And that light doesn't leave when the moment passes. It stays in your face, in your presence, in the way you walk into the room. The Course says, this is where miracles are laid. Where? In that little space between time and eternity. That instant where grace touched you. That moment where the world stopped and peace took over. You felt it. You didn't plan it. You just received it. And what do you do with that miracle? You bring it back. You return it to the world, not by preaching, not by convincing, but by letting the light linger in your face. Think of someone who forgave deeply. You see it in their eyes. You see it in how they don't overreact anymore. You see it in how they listen differently. That's what this means. People look at you and say, something about you is calmer, you're not shaken like before, and you didn't try to be that way. Grace just left a mark on you, and now your whole being becomes a witness to peace. Then it asks, what is the face of Christ but he who went a moment into timelessness? That's anyone, you included, who had even a second of remembering. I'm not separate. I'm not guilty. I'm not alone. I'm not a body. I am safe in God, even if it was just a flicker. You stepped outside of the ego. You stepped into truth, and you brought that clarity back with you, like someone who stepped into sunlight and returned still glowing. That's the face of Christ, not a man, not a myth, but the reflection of unity carried back from that holy moment, to bless the world, to comfort the ones still afraid, still angry, still stuck. Then the paragraph lands the real punch. How could you finally attain to it forever while a part of you remains outside? See, this isn't a solo trip. You don't get to peace and close the door. If a part of the sonship is still hurting, still doubting, still not awake, then your joy stays incomplete. Because we are one, and wholeness means everyone comes home. That's why you go back. That's why you return from grace, not to brag, but to be a living invitation, a gentle reminder, a witness to the truth. Someone in your life needs your light right now. Not your fixing, not your advice, just your steady presence, your forgiving heart, your silent face that says, I went beyond the noise, and there is peace there, and I remember it for both of us. Be grateful to return, as you were glad to go an instant and accept the gifts that grace provided you. You carry them back to yourself. And revelation stands not far behind. Its coming is ensured. We ask for grace and for experience that comes from grace. We welcome the release it offers everyone. We do not ask for the unaskable. We do not look beyond what grace can give. For this we can give in the grace that has been given us. Paragraph 14 is about coming back with your hands full, not of ideas, but of gifts from grace. This is the paragraph that says, you went beyond the world for a moment, and now you're back. But you didn't come back empty. And it says, be grateful, because even a second in grace gives you something real, something you can carry into your relationships, your silence, your work, your presence. The course says, be grateful to return as you were glad to go an instant. That means, if you ever had a moment where you felt deep peace, like everything was okay, even if your problems weren't fixed, be thankful for that. Even if it didn't last, even if it came during a walk, in a song, in the middle of crying in the car, that moment was grace. It gave you something real, and now you're back in the world again, making dinner, answering emails, raising kids, but you're carrying something you didn't have before. You carried the gift back to yourself. It's like going on a trip and coming back with something you didn't know you needed. Now it's in your pocket. Now it's in your face. Now it shows up in how you speak to people, not because you're trying, but because grace leaves a mark. And the course says, revelation stands not far behind. You may not be fully awake yet. You may still get angry, still get scared. But that deep moment you had, that quiet moment of grace, that's proof. That's a signpost. And the full awakening, it's already coming. You don't need to chase it. Then it says, we ask for grace and for the experience that comes from grace. This means we're not asking for more knowledge. We're asking to feel that peace again. That moment when we were kind and didn't know why. That moment when we didn't argue even though we had a great comeback. That's grace. It showed up and made a different choice possible. And the next line, we welcome the release it offers everyone. Let's say someone wronged you, like badly, and one day you stop telling the story. You stop rehearsing the pain. You just breathe and let it go. That's the release grace offers. And when you do that, you're not just freeing them, you're freeing you. Now here's the big line. We do not ask for the unaskable. So what's the unaskable? It's like asking God, let me have peace, but also keep hating my ex. That's unaskable. Because peace and hate can't live in the same house. It's like saying, let me feel safe, but still blame my parents forever. That's unaskable too. Because blame blocks the door where safety wants to enter. We don't ask for what contradicts truth. We ask for what grace can actually give. Release, lightness, forgiveness, healing. And we let go of the rest. The next line, we do not look beyond what grace can give. What would that look like? Imagine you forgave someone and suddenly felt peace. Then your ego says, cool, but I still want them to admit they were wrong. That's looking past grace. Because grace gave you peace, but now you're asking for proof. You're reaching beyond the gift, and in doing so, you lose the gift. Or let's say you're praying and you feel calm. But then you say, okay, God, now fix my job. You just skipped over grace. You turned presence into pressure. You looked past what was already enough. That's why the Course says, we don't go beyond what grace can give, because what grace gives is everything we really need. And last line, For this we can give in the grace that has been given us. So you got peace? Give peace. You got patience? Show patience. You've been forgiven. Then let that same light pass through you to the next person in line. You don't have to give what you don't have. Just give what grace already gave you. Our learning goal today does not exceed this prayer. Yet in the world, what could be more than what we ask this day of Him who gives the grace we ask, as it was given Him? By grace I live. By grace I am released. By grace I give. By grace I will release. Paragraph 15 is the final prayer. But it's not just a prayer you say with your mouth. It's a way of living, a rhythm, a quiet vow that says, I'm done fighting. I'm ready to give what I've received. The Course says, our learning goal today does not exceed this prayer. That means this one prayer, this one simple phrase, is enough. We're not trying to learn more today. We're just trying to live from what we already received. Because in a world full of goals, money goals, fitness goals, relationship goals, this one stands alone. Let me live by grace. Let me receive it. Let me give it. That's the only goal that heals everything else. Then the line says, yet in the world, what could be more than what we ask this day of Him who gives the grace we ask? Let's break that down. You're not asking the world for peace. You're not begging your boss, your partner, or your past to give you freedom. You're asking God, the source of everything true, to give what He's already glad to give. That's like asking the sun to shine. You don't have to beg, you just open the blinds. You're saying, I'm ready now. No more hiding, no more faking, no more pretending I'm unworthy. That's the prayer, and it's more than enough. And then the final 4 lines come in, short, strong, simple, and packed with power. By grace I live. That means I'm not surviving on my own effort. I'm not depending on how well I perform. I'm breathing because love holds me up. I am here today because God never let go, even when I forgot. By grace I am released. Released from what? From needing people to act a certain way, from keeping score, from the idea that I have to punish myself to be good, from the lie that I'm too far gone. Grace breaks those chains, and it does it without yelling, without arguing. It just opens the door and says, you're free if you want to be. By grace I give. That means I don't give because I have to. I don't give to earn points. I give because I've been given so much. Peace came to me when I didn't deserve it. So now I let that same peace spill through me to others. I don't need to hoard grace. There's more than enough to share. By grace I will release. That means I'm not holding on to old pain. I'm not clutching grudges like trophies. I'm letting go, even if they never say sorry, even if it still hurts. Because I don't want to be a jailer anymore. I want to be free, and grace is freedom. So today, mighty companion, you don't have to fix yourself. You don't have to understand everything. You just have to say this. By grace I live. By grace I am released. By grace I give. By grace I will release. Say it once. Say it slow. Say it from your gut. And then just let it do its work. And that's a wrap on a masterclass in grace. You carried it all the way through, mighty companion. And now you got it in your hands. Let's walk out into the world with that face lit up, like somebody who's been outside of time and came back to remind the rest of us, it's safe to come home.